Howdy Internet, it's me, David Lee Brown, and I'm here with another Bible review. We're going to be looking at the Lockman Prime Edition 1995 New American Standard. Yes, those are exciting words to say together. Prime Edition 1995 New American Standard. So we'll be looking at that in brown goat skin. But first, this video is sponsored by none other than me. And you can check out my website, davidleebrown.odoo.com. That link will be in the description, where you can check out this commentary on the greatest commandment, to hear the Lord and love Him. So on the website, you'll find the book, you'll find the instrumental music that I write to undergird your prayer and meditation time. You'll find free teaching to download and stream, and then also ways to support my family and I and full-time ministry if you enjoy the channel and if you enjoy the ministry. So that's it with the warm-up. I'm trimming that down severely, aren't I? And now I'm taking more of your time by telling you how much time I've actually saved. But go check out the website. Link will be in the description. Individual links will also be below that in the description as well, if you just want to go check out one of the things. But now, the New American Standard, 1995, Lockman Foundation, Prime, Goatskin, Brown with ribbons, 10.5 font. Single column reference. This will be the third Prime Edition that I've looked at this year. I saw the first two. I have not seen the, like that mid-size reference edition. It seemed a little bit thick for me for the 8.5 by 5.5, and it was a 2020 New American Standard. If they do that one in a 95, I'll probably pick one of those up. But the 2020 has been very difficult for me to get into and use in the same way that I do my 95 New American Standard. The Legacy Standard has been such an easier transition, but this isn't a video about translations. I guess just an explanation of why I haven't reviewed too many of the new 2020 New American Standards. But anyway, Lockman just released an exciting edition, which is the single column side reference edition of the New American Standard. So classic format that we're used to seeing in the New American Standard, but with one major update that's really cool. So it's a completely new typeface, although there's some similarities, and it'll feel like home if you're one that likes the single column reference edition of the New American Standard. But this is available in 1995 and 2020. So I'm hopeful that we'll begin to see some of the new Prime editions in the 95 as things progress. So maybe I was wrong from this last year. Maybe the 95 is not dead completely, especially with amazing editions like this still coming out. When this came out in 1995, New American Standard, I was like, oh, I want me one of those. But I didn't know if I would like the new typeface, and I'd seen the Primes before, and the Primes, they're very nice Bibles. So you can look at this one. I love the raised hubs, which Lockman has done raised hubs for a while. Their previous nicer editions were calfskin Bibles, and I'll show you one of the old ones here in a moment to show you what they updated on the typeface. Which those were decent Bibles, but you weren't able to put them fairly up against a Schuyler and Allen. It was just a different quality altogether. I think they were printed and bound in China, and the paper opacity was not as good as they are in the Primes. These Primes are just really amazing. They're printed and bound in Korea, and those Korean Bibles with the Legacy Standard and Lockman Primes, they've been doing fantastic. And so the goat skin is nice. The thing with the goat skin is it's always going to be supple, but as far as the hard or the softness of the goat skin, that really varies in each individual Bible. So even Schuyler has this, anything in natural grain goat skin. Some of the goat skins are just tougher, and some of them are really, really soft. And so this one is kind of in between the two Primes that I have. My black compact is really, really soft, and then the large print ultra thin is really tough goat skin, but it does break in over time. Now this Bible came in, and I was not expecting to like it as much as I have, and so I've been using it a lot. I've been stuffing it in my backpack just this last week, and I haven't been marking in it yet, though I know the paper can take it. I just haven't decided how I'm going to use this Bible, so I've kept my pens and highlighters out of it at this point until I figure out what to do. But you might be seeing in the video that the generous yap that they have, it's not a full yap, so it doesn't have as much overhang as some of the Schuyler options or an Allen Bible, but it has a tasteful amount of yap, not too big, not too small. But you might be seeing in the video like how it overhangs and folds over the text block. And some of you guys that know about yap training, you might be wondering, how's he get his yap to do that? How does he train his yap? And I gotta say, just don't keep your Bible in the box when you carry it around. I see a lot of guys, and even in our local context or online, that every time they transport the Bible, it's in the box that it came in, and the box gets beat up, and the Bible stays nice and pristine. So if you want the Bible to stay nice and pristine, and you're going to train your yap while you're carrying it in a box, I don't feel like it's going to fold over. The two things that get your yap to fold over the greatest is when you're transporting it in a bag or something. Like, don't abuse the text block or the pages or anything, but the yap is there to protect the pages in that type situation. So just carry it in the bag without a box, is what I do. And so I put it in my, not my backpack, but one of those leather zippy things, man purse things. And so I'll put it in there, and I usually have another Bible or two and some notebooks in there. So they all just go in there and get smushed up and get like jostled around. And that really trains the yap. And then just reading it, like actually using it. And you know, it's kind of a fidget thing. Like when I'm reading it, I might like pinch some corners or something. I'm used to doing that. But really just reading it, using the Bible, and really not babying it. These are really nice bindings and really good cover. And if you want to train your yap, just use it and don't keep it in the box. Now, I will keep it in the box or something a little bit tighter if I know there's risk of like the pages getting wrinkled up inside. But even in the art gilding for the video, I've been using it, so there's already a couple dings on it, and I'm not worried about that. The gold gilding gets dinged and worn off as you use it, and so I'm not one that tries to keep my Bibles pristine, but I also don't try to trash them either. I want to take care of them. But I really, really, really like this. So I went with the brown goat skin. The primes have 2 ribbons on them, which is nice. So raised hubs, kind of a generous yap, 2 ribbons with the art gilding and the gold perimeter gilding when you open this baby up. And so there's a concordance in the back, there's maps, typical Bible stuff for a Bible this size. And you know, it's a little bit on the thinner side for a single column. It's really nice. One of the things they did with this edition is they got rid of the wide margins. You have maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe 5/8 of a margin on the outside where you could take notes if you wanted to. On most pages, there's space to take notes between the cross references and the footnotes. But to me, if you're going to use it like that, that seems like it would begin to clutter up the page, and I wouldn't want to clutter up the page in that manner. So I don't feel like, for me personally, this is a good note-taking Bible. Although the page can take like highlighting and annotating and maybe some small notes. There's no notebook paper or anything. And so if you're going to jot down notes, I'd say just have a notebook next to you that you can write in. But it is a single column verse by verse format. The columns are really just the perfect width in my opinion. They're not too long, they're not too short, and I'll show you some examples of maybe a little bit too long or maybe a little bit too short, but this just sits right in the middle, and it's a good column size verse by verse. Now it's, again, I think I said at the beginning when I was being goofy, but it's a 32 GSM paper, which I like the paper way better than the previous paper. And so the Prime Editions, when you order one of those, you're getting top-notch stuff. And these Korean Bibles can hold their own against the top premium. I feel like they are in the top premium. I think the Primes outdo the Thomas Nelson stuff that I've seen. And, you know, some of the Nelsons are nice enough, but I have not seen them come up to this level where you can actually hang with the top-tier premium guys. Now, here's the really, really cool update that they did compared to the previous 95 single column reference, is they separated the cross references in the footnotes. So in the old 95, and I'll show you here on my Allen single column reference because the opacity is better than the old Lockman, but what they did on this new one by separating them is put the cross references on top and they've put the footnotes in the bottom. They also took them out of this jumbly paragraph presentation, and each verse has its own line for the footnote or for the cross-reference. So it's extremely efficient functionality as a reader. Even though it's verse by verse, this thing would be a really smooth reader. And if you're looking at cross-references, or me, like, I really look at the footnotes is where I hone in. I don't pass a footnote by when I'm reading the Bible, and so to have an efficient footnote system where you're not like, where is the button? There it is. To have an efficient system where you can just see the footnote, get back into the text body, and keep going is amazing to me. And so they've done a spectacular job at redoing the typeface, and just that subtle change to me just saves so much time and makes the reading experience so much more efficient when I'm just spending time with this. The previous editions had the verses in the columns, but then each verse would have all the cross-references and footnotes all packaged together as one thing, and I wouldn't go as far to say it was a jumbly mess. You could find what you were looking for, and things were presented in bold or regular font so you can tell between, like, where's the footnote and where's the cross-reference and all this stuff, but it was still each verse kind of matched on the side, and the footnotes and the cross-references were all put together when you found your verse on the side column. And so, I mean, you could find it, but comparing it to this, it's a little bit more cumbersome. The flow on these new primes is just spectacular. And again, this is not just for the 95 text. This is also for the New American Standard 2020 text. And so they have this single column, verse by verse, with the footnotes and the cross-references presented like this in both of those editions. And it's the same style where, if you're familiar with the Legacy Standard inside column reference, it's a very similar presentation. So the Legacy Standard is going to be a verse by verse single column with the exact same format, with the cross references on top and the footnotes on the bottom, but on the insides of the column. The other two differences between this New American Standard and the Legacy Standard single column, besides the inside column reference, is the Legacy Standard has thicker paper, so you have 40 GSM on the Legacy Standard paper versus 32 GSM here, which honestly I like the thinner packaging, and it's not going to affect the note. I'd take notes in the 28 GSM Skylar paper just fine, and I'll talk about the Skylar paper here in a second. And then the other difference is the Legacy Standard single column is 11-point font, where this one is 10.5, so just a size smaller, and I feel like I like the presentation on this a little bit better. I like the size, and honestly, even though I like the Legacy Standard better, I still love the 95 New American Standard. This one will probably get used more than the Legacy Standard single column, just because the Legacy Standard single column, it is a big dude. It is thick with that 40 GSM paper, and with that half a font size enlargement on that, combined with a thicker paper, it's just a thick Bible. Sometimes the size is hard to see in the video, but you can see it pretty good, I feel like, when you look at the spine of these. But it's one of those things where you really feel it in your hand and your lap, or like here, this is a big dude. And I'm not complaining, I like the Bible, but when you're just comparing and it's like, man, I get one, I would probably drift towards this one, even though I'm really enjoying this translation. But anyway, I'm sorry, buddy. I still love you, and you still smell great. What is that you're wearing? Oh, Korean goatskin? Okay, that's very lovely. I'm going to set you down over here. Next, I have the calfskin Lockman. Now, again, disclaimer, I added the red under the gold in these. They didn't come like that, and I don't know if they still sell these or not. This might be replacing it. You might be able to find these on Amazon, but golly, the paper is so much better, and having the goat skin with it feels like a much more secure binding in this one, even though I haven't had an issue with this. I would go with the new guy, but just to show you the difference in opacity, hopefully the camera can pick that up. But one of the other things obviously they got rid of was that line dividing the text body from the footnotes. The new Primes, it still lays flat, and it was a lot stiffer when it came in, and it's loosened up considerably. So I'll be curious to see what it looks like, in the next few months as I continue to use this. It'll probably end up being a lot more loose in the spine as I'm able to just read through it, use it, open it, close it, and all that stuff. So anyway, way better opacity. I can't remember if these old ones were line matched or not, but this new one definitely is. The Primes are definitely line matched. And looking at this old one, it doesn't look like it's line matched to me. There I see some text that doesn't match up, but I see some that does. So if it was line matched, it wasn't done very good. Where this one, the line matching seems to be right on the money. Without a doubt, that one's line matched. But anyway, so there's that old Lockman, and you can see similar size footprint for the text block, just a tiny bit narrower on the Prime. But when you're looking at it, that generous yap on the new Primes makes it look bigger, but still very, very similar size. Now another single column option is the Zondervan single column in their Premier series, which this is still such nice goat skin, super supple, and these are printed and bound in China. So the paper is interesting in these. It's, the opacity looks fine, and I've never had a problem writing, but it doesn't feel super robust. And I've had stickies in not this specific Bible, but there was a New King James Premier I was teaching from, and normally I'm not careless with the stickies when I'm taking them out of my Bible after I'm done with the place I've been looking at, but I've had these pages in these Premier Bibles seem to tear pretty easy, and I hadn't had an issue with any paper from anyone else. So this Korean paper, the paper that Skylar or Alan uses, I don't have an issue. But this would be an example of a single column that to me is a little bit on the thinner side. And when you get towards the ends of the text block on this Zondervan, you have words that start reading into the gutter, where this one opens far enough and there's enough breathing room that it's not as pronounced of an issue on the Lockman. So on this Zondervan, I wish they would have spread out the text a little bit more, taken away some of the margin space to give it a little bit more breathing room. And the columns seem a little bit narrower, and because of that, I think the Bible ended up being thicker than it really needed to be. But other than that, same general format, even though it's a new typeface, same general format as the old single column from Lockman, where you have the verses on the side, and then with that verse you have all the footnotes of the cross references and the wide margin. The only bummer with these Zondervans is you don't have the full footnote package, so you don't have all 14,000 footnotes. But with the Lockmans, you're going to get the full 14,000 footnotes. All these are going to look like a similar size footprint. It's going to be the thickness because of the font size, and I think just the layout of this helps keep it on the thinner side for a single column. I think this is the thinnest I know for a fact, this is the thinnest single column of all these New American Standard single columns that I have, and that is a beautiful thing. That's a welcome thing, because my issue with single columns in the past is they're just, I like the format and the typeface in a general sense, and that's usable, in some ways, but at the end of the day, they're still just really big Bibles. One of my favorites, which is the Allen single column reference Bibles. Now, if you've been on my channel for a couple years and you've heard me knock this Bible, and now you're hearing me call it one of my favorites, I'm just saying it's grown on me. But when it came in, I was really disappointed, and I'm still not a fan of the wrinkling and the gutter when you open this thing up. And so that's the only thing that's just a bummer on this one. So same exact typeface as that old Lockman that I showed you, but without the wide margins. And so that Allen single column is a little bit thicker than this Prime, but it's more of a traditional book footprint to me. Now last is a Schuyler Stridon. This is a 2020 New American Standard, and I'm showing it to you in a 95 video because this is available in 2020. So if you're interested in the 2020, I feel like the competition between these are not really a competition. I feel like your decision as the viewer and like looking at these reviews, if you're looking at a 2020, is going to be which one of these do I get? Honestly, I feel like the quality in both of them as far as the construction and the building materials is even. I'll share things that I like better about each of them. I feel like Schuyler, because they've been around for a little bit and they've been developing things and always just looking at new colors, new ways to present things on the typeface, I feel like they've always innovated, and because of that constant innovation, there's so much creative aspects that go into their Bibles where, you know, the Prime is a work of art, no doubt, but you hold a Schuyler and you go through a Schuyler and it's like, wow. Like, not only is this a work of art, but this is the work of an artist who's really been refining things through the years. And so this is just a refined work of art, every single Schuyler. And the beauty of this refined work of art is that they're also built so well that they're not going to fall apart on you. They're going to be reliable. So it's not just made to look pretty, it's made to be used and used constantly and be able to function well within that use while it's just this beautiful, beautiful presentation in the Bible. And so that's one of the things I love about Schuyler. So if you get the Lockman Prime, you're still getting a beautiful Bible. However, it's not the work of art that Schuyler is. That's one of the reasons I would go with the Schuyler. Now, the next is some people talk about the paper. Now, the Schuyler paper is 28 GSM versus 32 GSM in the Lockman Prime single column. Now, I like the paper in the Lockman Prime single column. I think it's great paper. I have no complaints about the paper. But again, kind of hearkening back to that artistic thing, I don't know what it is about this European paper. Even though it's 28 GSM, the opacity is slightly different, but again, I still write in my Schuyler Bibles. I don't have an issue with writing in the 28 GSM paper at all. I think it can handle it, it's great, and I still use the Pigma Micron 005s and Sharpies and Bics for highlighters. There's just a look on the Schuyler paper, like that darker, creamier paper. I'm a sucker for that, and it feels so soft. Again, the Lockman paper is great, but I feel like the Schuyler paper just feels amazing, and there's just something to the feel of it and the texture of it, like when you have your hand on it, when you're flipping through the pages, like the weight of it and the softness of it. I personally like the Schuyler paper just because of that feel factor. This also feels great. I love it. I don't think it feels bad. I wouldn't say you have to change it. It's just different until you hold one of each in your hand and get used to the subtleties. I don't know if can explain it that well, but me personally, I like the Schuyler paper better, even though it's a lower GSM. Now, looking at the typeface specifically, the verse-by-verse single column is about all these typefaces have in common together. When you look at the Schuyler, when it gets out of the poetry sections and you're in the paragraph sections, you'll have the bold verse numbers, as you do in both of them, to highlight the new paragraph start. But in that paragraph mode, the verse number is going to be indented with the text, where on the Lockman, the verse number is always going to be to the side. So as someone who preaches, I'd rather have the way Lockman presented the verses off to the side, just easier to find. Now, Schuyler does use red verse numbers to identify, so you have that color differentiation, and so that's helpful. And so I'm not saying it's bad, it's just different, and because it's different, I prefer the Lockman when it comes to that. Now, the next thing with the Schuyler, the text in each column seems just a hair too long, and maybe it's just because I'm not used to it and I haven't really read through it that much, because again, as 2020 New American Standard, I hadn't spent a whole lot of time in it. But the time that I have spent, it seems like the text is a little bit too long in the column, that the columns are too wide for my taste. such that it doesn't feel like a verse by verse when you're reading through it. It feels more like a novel or like a single column paragraph format, where you would expect the longer lines to be in there because you're reading like a normal book. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. Some people probably prefer that, but for how I traditionally use Bibles as a reader and a teacher, that's one of those things. I feel like the Lockman Foundation's typeface, and both of them are done by 2K Denmark. They're just different takes at presenting the Bible, but I still would gravitate towards the Lockman typeface. Now, when you look at how the footnotes and the cross-references are presented, on the Schuyler, just as well as the Lockman, you have separation of the cross-references with the footnotes, which personally, that's one of my favorite features on any Bible, is if the cross-references and footnotes aren't jumbled up together, but they're separated, it makes it way more efficient. So the Schuyler is efficient and the Lockman's efficient. The one thing that makes the Lockman a little bit more efficient, and I already touched on it in the video, is instead of the footnotes or the cross-references being presented in paragraph and multiple lines, each verse has its own line. Each verse starts with its own line, whereas you look at the Schuyler and everything's presented more in a paragraph situation. And that's just because of the room that they have. And again, you have the red numbers to help you identify and find. So it's still an efficient system on the Schuyler, but I think this is one of those areas where the Lockman typeface is just slightly above, and I would gravitate towards that typeface. Now, the good thing about the Schuyler typeface is there's definitely room for notes. Like, you can write your own notes and cross-references. Some Bibles, it's like you can barely squeeze in cross-references. You've got a wider margin. This is about 1 inch on the side. And so you have plenty of room for writing in those margins. And I feel like you can write in these margins without the typeface looking cluttered. That's the one ding I would have on the typeface against the Lockman Bible, is if you begin to write notes and cross-references where you have room on the page, I feel like it would so clutter the page that it would just, for my eye, it would be distracting if I was reading. So I don't want to write cross-references or write my own notes in this Bible. I'll highlight and underline and circle, but as far as writing in the Bible, I just feel like that would jumble everything up. Where the Schuyler, I feel like you could write in it and it's not going to look jumbled up. It would look a lot more natural. At the end of the day, I feel like if you're someone who wants to write in the Bible and write in your own cross-references and write in your own notes in the margins, then the Schuyler, without a doubt, is it. And then you get the plus of just like that artistic, like that Schuyler puts into their Bibles. The Lockman Prime is still just an outstanding Bible. If you're not going to write in it, I feel like this is just such a smoother, more efficient reader. The typeface is just as pleasing, but yeah, I don't know if that's helpful if you're stuck between these two formats. They're both terrific Bibles, and I feel like the top of their game, there would be reasons to get one versus the other, but I think I covered that sufficiently, so I'm not going to repeat myself. That's it. Thanks for hanging with me for a longer review. I apologize this is longer, but I feel like some of the details were worth getting into with the differences in some of the single column presentations. And I just like this Bible a lot. Kind of surprised at how much I liked it. I knew the Lockman Primes were nice, but I was surprised that it was so useful. I like the new fresh typeface. I feel like all the changes they made were positive. This Bible just makes me happy. I've been using this one every day since it came in. And this was one that I did purchase for myself. They didn't send it to me. So I say that to say, like, I'm not just saying, like, wow, I like this Bible because they sent me a free Bible. But, wow, I like this Bible, and I wasn't expecting to like it so much. But anyway, thanks again for watching the video. Again, all the links I mentioned at the beginning are in the description. You can visit my website, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.